Hello everyone, welcome to Hard Surface. I hope you have a good time learning how to 3D model in Blender. For this introduction, I will assume you never used Blender or any 3D modeling software. For this tutorial, we'll be using Blender 2.79. The goal of this course is to teach beginners the general concepts of 3D modeling while using Blender. While the knowledge of the software itself won't carry over, many of the 3D modeling concepts you can apply to other 3D packages. By the end of this course, you will have the tools and knowledge necessary to get started on your own 3D models. If you want to review any subject, timestamps are available in the description. So if you're ready, let's jump straight into it. Before we get started, we need to make a few preparations. So let's go to File and Load Factory Settings. This will pop up, just click on it and it's confirmed. Then go to User Preferences, under Input and select Width Left. Close the window and now you can use the left mouse button to select. You can keep the previous settings if you want, but I would recommend you follow along. With that out of the way, if you want to change the size of any window within the user interface, all you have to do is to come up to an edge, left click and drag. To create new windows, you can come up to the top right corner, left click and drag. You can also drag in different directions to create new windows. And to close, just drag them back until you see a big arrow and then let go. As we won't be doing any animation, I recommend you come down to the bottom left corner, click and drag down to close the timeline. To hide the tool shelf on the left side of the screen, press T. And to unhide it, press T again. To access the Properties panel, press N. And to close it, press N again. Next, we're going to talk about viewport navigation. But before that, I'd like to mention that on the top right of my viewport, there's a small overlay that will display all the keys I'm pressing. The viewport is a window where all the modeling will take place. If your object is selected, you'll notice an orange contour around it. If not, left click on it or come to the Scene Outliner on the top right corner of the screen and click on Cube. Press the numpad dot to focus on the object. You can also use the scroll to move away or to move closer to it. To zoom in and out with more precision, hold Ctrl and middle mouse button and drag the mouse back and forth. To orbit around an object, hold the middle mouse button and drag the mouse. To pan, hold Shift and middle mouse button and drag the mouse around. If you want to change to a front view, press 1 on the numpad. For a back view, Ctrl and numpad 1. For a right side view, numpad 3. And for a left side view, Ctrl and numpad 3. Numpad 7 for a top view. And for a bottom view, you might have guessed numpad 7. To switch to an isometric view mode, press 5 on the numpad. To change back to perspective, press numpad 5 again. If you want to deselect an object, press Shift and left click on it. To select all objects in a scene, press A. And to deselect them, press A again. Let's select the cube. Once selected, you'll notice a widget with 3 arrows. Red for the X, green for the Y, and blue for the Z. If you click on any of the arrows and move the mouse, you'll move the object along the selected axis. If you click the circle in the middle, you'll be able to move the object in all axes. To rotate the object, press R on the keyboard. To lock the object's rotation to any axis, press X, Y, or Z on the keyboard. To scale the cube, press S. Just like with rotation, after pressing S, you can lock the scaling to any axis. You can also move an object along any axis by pressing G and then X, Y, or Z. Let's enter edit mode by pressing Tab. Once in edit mode, you'll notice a few buttons pop up below. These will allow us to select vertices, edges, or faces. You can also access them in your viewport by pressing Ctrl and Tab. Let's select faces for now. Just like when manipulating an object, you can use the widget to move the faces around. The same applies to edges and vertices. And you can of course scale them and rotate them as well. Now let's say we take things too far and we want to go back to the original shape. Press Ctrl Z to undo a couple of times. You can redo the changes by pressing Ctrl, Shift and Z. If you are in the middle of an operation and you want to cancel it, keep the left mouse button pressed and press the right mouse button at the same time. If you enter edit mode and turn your attention to the tools panel on the left, you'll notice most of the tools we will be using are present here. If you hover over them, it will tell you the shortcut you need to use in order to quickly access them within the viewports. In addition to this, I have compiled a list of our most used shortcuts during this course, and you can download it by clicking the link in the description. Let's turn our attention to the scene outliner on the top right corner of the screen. Here you can select your objects, you can restrict their visibility, restrict their selection, and restrict the rendering. Under the outliner, you'll find a properties panel with several tabs. More on those later on as we model. You can save your files by going to File on the top left corner and clicking Save or Save As. You can also save by using the shortcut Ctrl S and Shift Ctrl S to save as. To open a file, you can simply go to Open, or to open a recent file, you can go to Open Recent. If you want to delete an object, select it, press X and then Delete. To bring in another object, hold Shift and A and then select one of the shapes. Let's bring in a UV sphere this time. Whenever you bring in an object, on the left hand side you'll have this panel which allows you to set properties for the given object. In this case we can increase or decrease the segments, making our sphere rounder or less round, and we can also do the same for the rings. We can change its size and we can choose to generate UVs, and you'll learn more about that later. Align to view, you can choose its location and rotation. If you move the sphere within the viewport, you will lose some of those properties. To return the object to the center of the grid, let's go to the left panel and enter 0 on the y-axis. To move your object with extreme precision, you can hit G on the keyboard and press one of the axes, either X, Y or Z, in this case Y, and enter a number, then press enter. I entered 1, and this will move the object by 1 unit on the positive y-axis. If you want to move it on the other direction, you press G, press the same axis and minus the value, in this case -1. You can also rotate the object with the same precision by pressing R, the axis, and typing in the number, in this case 90 degrees on the x-axis. Scale works a bit differently. If you press S and type in 0.5 and hit enter, this will make the object half the size. If you press S and 1, this will keep the object the same size. And if you press S and then type 2 and hit enter, this will return the object to the original size, or the double of what we just had. If you enter edit mode by pressing tab, and you come up to the object and you press C and then left click, this will allow you to drag this selection over as many faces as you want to select them. You can also move these faces with the same level of precision by pressing, for example, G and Y and typing in the number. In this case, let's type -1. You can do the same, of course, with rotation. Let's hit R and on the y-axis -45. And we can do the same with scale. If we hit S and 2, it will double the size. And the same is true for edges. If you grab an edge and you say press G and Z, then 1.5, it will move the edge by 1.5 units in the Z-axis. Let's have a look at the Snaps tool. If you come down here to the bottom and you click on this magnet, it will turn on the snaps. Now, when you move your mesh, it will snap to the grids, but you can also change it to snap to something else. For example, if you use this drop-down menu, you can snap it to vertex, edge, face, or volumes. You can also do the same with any part of your mesh. For example, if you want to snap this vertex to another vertex, you turn on the snaps, you change it to vertex, and you snap it to another vertex. And with this, we have concluded our introduction to Blender. In the next part, we'll jump straight into modeling our Nintendo. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.